Welcome inside the Sports Lodge podcast, episode 1. You know us from Durham Lords games. You know us from Riot Radio doing the Sports Lodge. Me and John have been working together for quite some time now. We figured we might as well do a podcast because it just seems to be the trendy thing to do, buddy. And
Yeah,
yeah, we're
here we
sitting
are.
we're sitting here on September 6th, and let's just jump right into it. Breaking news here in Toronto, as reported by John Heyman, John Gibbons not expected to be back as the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays next season. Does this surprise you at all, Johnny?
I'm so shocked right now. This hasn't been talked about for the last 2 months or more. I can remember when the Shapiro and Atkins regime hired Eric Wedge, former Seattle Mariners manager. And when they hired Mr. Wedge, everyone was like, "Oh, Gibbons is out the door." That was what, 2 years ago. So I think it's due time. Gibby's getting to that age where he doesn't want to deal with a full rebuild. He doesn't want to deal with a room full of young guys that he's having to rein in and control. So it's not a big shock to me. Wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it's it for Gibby in the game. I think he's going to go elsewhere because I think he's got value to a veteran team.
Yeah, we kind of heard Gibbons say as much earlier in the week when he said he didn't really want to be a part of a rebuild, which was a little bit of a red flag because we know where this Blue Jay team is heading, and it's right down rebuild alley again. Um, I did want to ask you about Shapiro and Atkins, John, because since we've talked last, it's also the best player in Blue Jays history, arguably, has been traded for a player to be named later. That player has now been named. I don't know who it is. Do you?
I have the article up here. Just give me
Okay, I'll
two
keep
seconds
talking while
here.
you look for it. So
I got
basically,
it. I got
okay,
it.
go.
Right-handed pitcher Julian Merriweather, player to be named later in the Josh Donaldson trade. He was not named at the time because he is currently on the DL because he has Tommy John surgery.
Oh, lovely.
So this is the power arm that the Blue Jays got for Josh Donaldson, the guy that's hitting home runs in the minor leagues now. It is the minor leagues, but he has looked pretty good. He hit the one home run for the Blue Jays in the rehab. Then he went to AAA for the Indians, hit a grand slam. Then he went to AA last night and hit another home run. So, I mean, I understand where the Blue Jays are in a rebuild, but I'm thinking the Indians came out way, way on top in this one.
Yeah, basically they traded nothing for a guy who, when healthy, is an MVP candidate, and then it's going to be a deep team to face in the playoffs. And all of a sudden, Toronto Blue Jays fans can be watching the Cleveland Indians have an order that goes somebody Josh Donaldson, somebody Edwin Encarnacion, and Blue Jay fans will be here shaking their head. I did want to quickly go back to the Shapiro and Atkins, John, just because of this trade and so many other debacles that have really gone on with this team ever since Ross Atkins was brought on as GM going in. This is his third full year with the team as GM. Obviously, they made the playoffs in the first year, but that was a largely Alex Anthopoulos-based team. In the 2 years since, we've seen a lot of struggles from the Toronto Blue Jays, whether it be injuries, whether it be discord between the managers and the players, whether it be discord between the fans and the management. And I think at this point, we're at an all-time high between contention and the fans and the general manager and president.
Yeah, I've seen an interesting article recently. I believe it was put out by Sportsnet that Shapiro may indeed be the target of the New York Mets for their vacant president spot. And I could be no more happier to let this man go. He inherited a playoff team, a team that was contending in the AL East, albeit a flawed team, but it was still a contending squad. And now, since they've taken over, they've done nothing but hit the bottom of the AL East. They haven't been able to pitch. They've been injury prone. Now, they're going to say, even if they move on, people are going to say, oh, but look at Vladdy Guerrero and Bo Bichette and Rowdy Tellez and all these guys. But a lot of these guys were in the pipeline already. So I mean, it's not really on Shapiro and Atkins. The development, it's been the way the Blue Jays have kind of run things. So I think it's been a massive flop for this duo in the front office, and it's time to move on. It really is. I think Atkins knows it. I think Shapiro knows it, and I would not be surprised if you see some sort of movement made in the offseason where the Blue Jays just decide to change over everything. No John Gibbons, no Shapiro, no Atkins, brand new young youthful roster. Yeah, I could see a new page being turned for the Blue Jays next year.
That would certainly, I think Jays fans would be willing to give up on this Shapiro Atkins combination. And it just, the PR game with them just gets worse and worse. Just considering they traded Donaldson to Cleveland. They've made a couple deals with the Indians, and nobody seems to be really thrilled with what they're putting together. So you never know, but we might as well continue to keep talking about dysfunctional organizations, John. Let's jump to the NFL.
Oh, hold on. Before we
sorry,
jump to
buddy.
the
What do you want to
NFL,
jump to?
there's just one more baseball topic, and I just remembered it. Shohei Ohtani.
Oh yeah, we
last
talked
night,
about this. You're right.
he has been. It was reported last night that he has been recommended to get Tommy John surgery. This guy, he hasn't been pitching for a while, but he's still been hitting. He's got that minor tear in his UCL, the Tommy John ligament. And they were hoping that he wouldn't have to have surgery. He's been on a tear. He gets the news, hey, man, you should probably get that Tommy John and be out till 2020. He hit 2 home runs last night. This man is, I don't know. I don't know.
The Ohtani experiment's been a weird one for me, Johnny, just because we've heard about these UCL injuries basically since he came over, and it's always been a bit of a conversation. Is he going to need the Tommy John? Obviously, the Angels elected against it. They figured they'd just roll the dice here, but at this point, do you just keep this guy as a hitter? Do you not risk the pitching? I get it that pitchers are more valuable and you can win more games, especially with the stuff this guy has, but it just seems to be a Band-Aid play in both positions, and at the major league level, I just don't know how long you can hold up like that.
See, I don't know. I mean, Ohtani, he's so good as a pitcher, but he's almost just as good as a hitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been able to watch his defense that much, so I don't know if his defense is plus plus. But I don't think you can give up on the pitching side, and I think you got to go with this Tommy John. I talked about it. We talked about it when he was first coming over. I said this guy was a candidate for Tommy John surgery right away, and it's going to happen. He's going to have it. I just think it's astounding that he's able to have so much power with almost no connective tissue left in his pitching arm, at least. I can't remember who it was who was asked recently if Ohtani would be able to come back as a hitter before a pitcher, but it was somebody in the organization who had Tommy John surgery as well. And he said the difference with him was that he didn't have to pitch, right? So
right.
he could come back sooner, right? So I don't think you can give up on Ohtani as the pitcher yet. I think maybe if you can rehab him as the Angels, maybe you look to trade him to a National League team where this guy can hit every 5 days and he's got to calm it down, where he plays over there and he hits as the pitcher only. Because I don't see him being able to do both positions. It's too much on the body.
Yeah, and especially at the major league level, 162 games, the travel, it's so much work. And obviously, this guy played a lot of baseball in Japan. He was brought over for a reason. You don't just have that talent and do things like that unless you're talented, but it seems like it's going to break down on him. And at least for the Angels, Mike Trout just continues to get screwed over here, I think. He really just draws the short end of the stick because I don't know.
This guy's never getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're never going to make the playoffs. His teams can't seem to stay healthy around him. And after all that talk around the All-Star break of trying to promote Mike Trout and really trying to promote the players of baseball, we haven't seen any of that really since the week after. So I guess we'll just have to continue with the Angels not being good and the best player in baseball, continually not making the playoffs. I want to move on from baseball, though, now, Johnny, if you're good. I don't have a sexy transition here to the Le'Veon Bell holdout like I did before, so let's just jump right into it. Le'Veon Bell, the guy I drafted number 2 in my fantasy league, he has decided he is not going to play week 1 through his agent. He has let the team and the organization and the fans know that he will not be playing Week 1 against the Cleveland Browns for fear of injury. Now, Le'Veon Bell, if you're not familiar with the story, he is holding out due to the franchise tag. He wants a long-term deal. The Steelers are trying to tag him for the second year in a row. John, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, are you freaking out yet?
This is the last year of Ben Roethlisberger, so yeah, I think you are. And I think that's why they're holding out on signing this guy to a long-term deal, because, I mean, just look at the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is no future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. AB is on the back half of his career. He's great. He's still one of the best wideouts in the league, but back half of his career, Ben Roethlisberger, like I said, last year of his career. And Le'Veon Bell is looking for a long-term deal. And if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, why am I going to want to have one guy? I don't even have a quarterback to hand the ball off to the guy. Like they just cut their backup for like the last 3 years.
Yeah, so they drafted a rookie in the third round, I believe, this year.
But I mean,
no, I hear you.
Like there's nobody ready to take over the Steelers. So I think the Steelers are looking at a rebuild, and I think that's why they don't want to sign this extension. So,
well, I think they're worried about Le'Veon Bell's injury history, right? Like, the guy gets hurt, and everybody gets hurt, but running backs in football, it's just the decline's so incredibly fast, right? And the way that Le'Veon Bell plays, where he can play all three downs, he can catch the ball, he can run with the ball. You want him to have the ball basically in every situation. I don't know if Big Ben's done after this year, Johnny. I know the quarterback they drafted lit a fire under his ass a little bit, so we'll see if that can push Big Ben to another year or two, but we will only be able to see. If I'm Le'Veon Bell, I'm still reporting on Saturday. That's what I think he's going to do here. If he reports by Saturday, which is what he did last year, he'll still make his $825,000 for the game check. He just won't play. And I guess they'll move on. Everybody will be back to being a cohesive group. But we have seen some shots fired at Le'Veon Bell by both current and former teammates. And I don't know, in a locker room with so many guys, if that can really make a difference. But it's certainly something to watch with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. A favorite in the AFC moving forward, I think, bud.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a little harsh saying Roethlisberger's done. I don't think it's not that he doesn't have the drive. I just think the way he plays, I don't think his body can hold up if he takes another couple of shots to those knees. Yeah. The big man, I just don't think he'll be able to do it anymore. So that's why you gotta capitalize on this 1 year here.
So that's enough with the Le'Veon Bell holdout. I think the Steelers are going to be real disappointed if they come away from this 5-year stretch with Bell, Brown, and Ben without a Super Bowl appearance, without even a real shot at this year. I think that's going to be a real disappointing stretch for the franchise, especially, as you say, I don't know if Big Ben's done, but he's certainly on the back half of his career. But let's talk about real football. Starts tonight. You got the Eagles versus the Falcons, an NFC matchup, playoff matchup from last season. It was a great game last year. Nick Foles getting the start again for the Eagles. Big Dick Nick is back in full force, while Carson Wentz still continues to recover from his multiple torn ligaments in his knee. I know we saw the best of Nick Foles last year in the playoffs, John. Do you expect to see a repeat performance here in Week 1?
I expect Nick Foles to want to repeat in that performance that he had. But I don't know. If Nick Foles performs the way that he performed, it almost devalues Carson Wentz to me, as crazy as that sounds, because that just means that team is just that good that practically anybody could go in there and plug into that offense and play quarterback, so long as they're competent. So I don't know. I hope for Carson Wentz's sake that he doesn't, but for Eagles fans, they want him to because they want to remain dominant. So it'll be interesting to see because the prediction that I'm reading right now is that they beat the Falcons by a hearty 16 points, 30-14. So that's what they're looking at right now.
That's the exact opposite of what I see happening tonight. I think it's going to be a bit of a beatdown here in Philadelphia. They're going to raise the banner. There's distractions. There's always distractions when you win a Super Bowl. And this team, this city, they don't know how to do it. Philly doesn't know how to win. They've never won before because they just don't win things in Philly. And they finally win a Super Bowl. And they're going to continue to brag and piss and be excited about it into the season. And I just think the Philadelphia Eagles are really, really, really going to feel this Super Bowl hangover here, especially without Carson Wentz. Now, I honestly, Johnny, I don't think Nick Foles can play good enough to take Carson Wentz's job. I think even if he goes out and throws 5 touchdowns and throws for 350 yards the first 2 weeks without Carson Wentz, I think the Eagles will flip him. I think they'll just use that to get value for a guy who's basically a career backup quarterback, and maybe you can find a team whose quarterback gets hurt and they're desperate and they think they can turn this kid into a starter, because I think they're really high on Carson Wentz. The guy was an MVP favorite before he got hurt last year, and I think the best asset management would be to flip Nick Foles, but I think they're going to get beat down by Matt Ryan and the Falcons here tonight, or at least I hope so.
Matty Ice, yeah, man, the guy went from the highest to highs to the lowest to lows last year. Just a big old Super Bowl hangover, without having the trophy to make you smile on the bad days. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that they beat down the Eagles as a Patriots fan, because I can't stand to see that team win. I can't stand the fan base, the way they react. So that's a little bit of my own personal flavor there. But I don't know. I think this is going to be a lot closer than most people think.
I certainly don't think it's going to be a 16-point spread.
No, it's not going to be a 16-point
I think this is going to be a fourth quarter game, which is what I'm looking forward to in football season.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple other Week 1 matchups I want to talk about here, Johnny. The first one, and probably the sexiest, is Jalen Ramsey versus OBJ and Eli Manning. Week 1, we talked about it on the radio show. Jalen Ramsey's basically come out and put the league on blast, saying he's the best corner, and a lot of these guys aren't that great. And one of the guys who really drew the ire of Jalen Ramsey was Eli Manning, and they get to go up against each other Week 1. I think Ramsey's going to be able to back it up, but if he doesn't, it's going to be a real bad look.
Yeah, I think this guy needs to back up his trash talk for sure. So, but the Jacksonville Jaguars are really they're one of the best defenses. I mean, crazy people in fantasy football drafts are taking these guys in like second and third pick, not overall, but like second and third round. So, I mean, it's just craziness.
Those people are dummies.
Yeah, I didn't take my defense until the last pick. So, and I got a good one too. So. I was happy. We'll talk fantasy football in a minute, but I like the Jaguars though. It's going to be interesting to see if they can go out and they can either work with Blake Bortles, or if they can get another quarterback in there. I honestly thought Teddy Bridgewater was going to head over to Jacksonville, but I guess Jacksonville they believe that much in Blake, and that they can do good things with him. I just don't think that he's got it in between the ears, though. He's got the skill, he's got the physical body for it. When crunch time comes, Blake goes.
Yeah, Blake Bortles is what he is. I think he's very limited. I think he's got a good arm, and he can keep it simple for you if you need him to. But not quite sure that's going to be the long-term solution there. I did quickly want to talk about Nate Peterman in Buffalo being named the starter. They obviously go out and draft a quarterback high, and they decide Nate Peterman, Mr. 5 interceptions, is going to be the man to step up and lead them Week 1. You hear from the coaching staff, they say he's earned it. He's been the best quarterback in camp. I guess it's just hard to look past his first impression, Nate Peterman, but I don't expect big things from him.
Yeah, you could take it here right on the Sports Lodge podcast. Nate Peterman is not going to be the starter for the Buffalo Bills. I can't see him past Week 4. I expect it maybe Week 3. You'll see Josh Allen. I just think that the fan base is just going to call for it. So yeah, I don't understand the decision here. Shady McCoy is going to get the ball all the time.
Yeah, basically. I think there's going to be a lot of drinking in Buffalo this offseason as your fire alarm continues to bug us. But it's okay. I know. We're powering through. Don't worry about it. Staying in the AFC East, we might as well talk about the reigning AFC champions, the New England Patriots, as you're in your Tom Brady jersey. They take on the Houston Texans in a Week 1 matchup that could very well be an AFC conference championship matchup, the way these two teams look like they're shaking out. Deshaun Watson is back and healthy. Add that to a healthy J.J. Watt and a healthy Javion Clowney in a contract year. The Honey Badgers come over from Arizona to make that defense even more stout. John, I'm mentally prepared to lose this game as a Patriots fan. Sunday, 1 o'clock. Are you?
I don't know. I mean, I'm never prepared to lose a game as a Patriots fan. I want to go 16-0. So
That is not happening this year, my friend.
no, it's
Schedule is
probably
too
not
hard
going
this
to
year, and
happen.
they are not deep enough.
But I'm never prepared to lose a game. I think the Patriots are in it every single time. I get that. This team is getting a little bit older, and the quarterback is really old, and we don't have Julian Edelman for the first 4 games because of some BS suspension that just really, it's just complete bull. Yeah, I don't know. The most interesting thing for me here is the Patriots running back Sony Michelle, sorry, I thought it was Michael. I'm pronouncing it as I read it. My bad. But yeah, what this guy is he going to be the number 1 back for the Pats?
Probably not right away. It looks like he hasn't really practiced. I don't know if he's going to be 100% good to go for week 1. It doesn't look like it. I think Sony Michel, after week 6, if he can earn the trust and he can hang on to the football, then I think he's going to be very much okay. He did have some fumbling problems early in camp before he was hurt, and then obviously losing those reps with the Patriots offense certainly hurts. But my biggest concern with Sony Michel is just the injury. It's the cartilage is gone from his knee. He's basically bone on bone, and that's not a fun way to be living, especially as an NFL running back. So hopefully he can get healthy and be ready to go. I think he can be a complete game changer in the Patriots offense and really change the dynamic with an explosive rusher that they just haven't had. I know they're going to try out Hill in this position after cutting Gillislee with the cuts, and James White's obviously going to get the ball a lot, and he's going to be involved with passing plays out of the backfield. And Sony Michel has proven in Georgia that he's able to catch and run the ball. This injury scares me, John, and I'm not quite sure if he's going to be able to hold up through the entire 16-game season.
Yeah, no. Obviously, the injury is, I mean, any injury in the NFL, as my fire alarm continues to go off, I do apologize. Yeah, any injury in the NFL is scary, right? Because you're in a hyper-physical sport. So anything can happen, especially as a running back, right? So, like, you're running headfirst 9 times out of 10 into into these like 380-pound behemoths who are just solid masses of muscle. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I have high hopes because the Patriots haven't really ever had that prolific sort of running back, right?
Not since Corey Dillon, no.
No, not since Corey Dillon. You hope that they could get back to that because that would make things so much easier on Brady. As much as Brady might want to throw it more, he came out the other day and he said he wants to play. He still plans on playing another 5 years.
That's what he said.
If he wants to do that, man, they need a top level running back. They really do.
Well, they got to be able to protect the old man too, and losing their first round pick win.
Yeah, no,
is a real tough loss for the Patriots. Before we get out of NFL, John, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Colin Kaepernick, and the biggest news in the sporting world is this new Nike ad campaign. People really stand on both sides of this. I feel like there's not a lot of middle ground here. There's either you love the move by Nike or you hate the move by Nike, and if you hate it, you're cutting off your socks, and if you love it, you're just living your life normally. I don't really know. There's a lot of outrage here, John. How do you feel about it?
I think it is a genius move by Nike. Oh my goodness. How much free publicity have they gotten so far? How many people are talking about the swoosh on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram and on the news and on the radio, and Nike didn't pay a penny for any of it.
They're paid for Colin Kaepernick.
But like they paid for the spot and they paid for the dude, right? But 9 times out of 10, if you want that kind of play on the air, you need to pay for advertising. You've got to pay to be on the stations. And Nike's not having to pay that now because of this statement that they've made, and I love it. I mean, I'm right behind Colin Kaepernick on it, and people, it's really bad because Nike has been known for sweat labor and very bad things. So
Hmm.
people want to talk about that, but I think as a social stance, if you look at it in North America. I think it does make a difference, and I think it's fantastic that the ad is going to play during tonight's Thursday night football game.
Yeah, this is the biggest fuck you to the NFL I've ever seen, really, as this is their main equipment provider. Like the NFL has signed a 10-year deal with Nike as their sole equipment provider, and then they basically disregarded Colin Kaepernick. I know there was opportunities for him to play in the league, and we can get into that at another time. I don't think that's really the conversation we're having now, but I don't think, actually, I know a company as big as Nike is making these decisions on a whim. They're not just deciding, oh, okay, now we're going to release Colin Kaepernick as our spokesman. They've been paying him for a long time. They've been sitting on this. This is a very strategic release date with 2 days before the NFL season starting. And it's interesting now. The NFL, the Nike, I just think they're one of the few companies in the world that's big enough to do this. They're big enough because you know the NFL is looking for a way to get out of the contract. You know they're going to try and do something here to answer back. It's just too big of a slap in the face, I think, for Jerry Jones and company to be able to sit here and eat it. So it'll be interesting to see what the NFL does, if anything, but I love it for Nike and for just talking about these sort of things. Obviously, Nike wants to be on the right side of these social justice issues, and as much as I may disagree with the way Colin Kaepernick's handled things, can't blame the guy for putting awareness out there, and now he's going to get paid to do it. Did you see the contract that Nike's given him?
No, I didn't see what he
He's
was
getting
getting.
the superstar contract, is what they call it. So there's going to be shoes, shirts, basically anything you can think, and there's going to be cap stuff, and he's getting paid lots of money. His deal's right up there with all the other highest level Nike athletes, and this guy hasn't played it down in football in a couple of years. So
Yeah, I know he's not a professional athlete
nope,
anymore, so
he's absolutely not at this point. But he's
he's a
turned himself
professional
into
activist.
he's turned himself into a bit of a martyr here, and he's found a way to make money off it. So good for him, good for Nike, and we'll see how the NFL responds. We're almost a half hour into this, buddy, and we're going to wrap it up shortly. But me and you, unless you had more football to talk about, I want to
Just
jump to
one
hockey.
last thing, we do
Yep.
have to talk about Khalil Mack.
Oh,
We do have
did
to
we not
talk
talk
about
about that?
we did not talk about
Oh,
Mack
then
being
yeah.
traded to the Chicago Bears, and that's a shock to me. I couldn't believe it was the Bears that got him away from the Raiders. But I mean, how bad is it? John Gruden gets signed to this ridiculous contract to be the head coach, and it's a guy who's kind of lost touch with the game, and then they lose the former defensive player, AP Defensive Player of the Year from 2016.
Hmm.
And then he goes over to the Bears and he signs a 6-year, $141 million extension with $90 million guaranteed. Richest deal ever
Yeah.
for a defensive player.
Yeah. See, I have differing views on it, Johnny, because I can understand what the Raiders are thinking here. There weren't a good defense with Khalil Mack. Obviously, they'd be a better defense with him. But you also got to think about the cap. And if you pay your quarterback, you can't pay everybody. And Derek Carr signed that $20 million plus contract extension. And I don't really see any way that you can afford to pay a player more than Derek Carr. I think you have to. Sometimes in locker rooms, the hierarchy is so important. I think that's what John Gruden and company have decided here. For the Chicago Bears, I love it. Why wouldn't you? Like, people saying 2 first-round picks is a lot. It is, but this guy's a proven commodity. He's going to go out there. He's going to get double-digit sacks this year. He's instantly going to make their defense that much better, and a defense that was knocking on the door of being a top 10 defense in the league this year, Johnny. I think they have a real opportunity to be a top 5 defense when you add someone to the caliber of Khalil Mack, as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, if only Mitchell Trubisky is the big question mark on that team for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the Bears, right? Like if they had a guy like a Deshaun Watson on that team with that sort of level defense, and you're almost shut down. You're almost thinking, wow, these guys can win their division easily and possibly go on a tear in the playoffs, and we're not even in snap one of week one. So yeah, he adds a lot to that team, and I think the Raiders are sorely mistaken. I mean, they got 2 firsts for him, so you can't really be too upset about the what you're bringing back. But the fan base, I mean, you're trying to get fans into that stadium for the next couple of years before you leave to Vegas, and then you're going to trade your best players or one of your best players, and I don't know. I think the Raiders are just a total shit show.
Yeah, that's a really tough sell for the loyal Raider fans who have been in Oakland for so long, and the team's leaving, and arguably their best player is gone with them. Okay, so contract problems, let's call it, with Cleo Mack led to him being traded, and here in Toronto, Johnny, there's some contract problems. William Nylander, 8 days out from camp, still remains without a contract. He's not even in the country yet. I'm not concerned. I don't know if you listened to it, but Bob McKenzie started his general manager, his interviews with all the Canadian general managers. Kyle Dubas was one of the first ones on that list, and he was very adamant that he's still going to get these guys signed, that they're going to be very patient with this whole process, but he did come out with a bit of a tidbit that he doesn't think Willie Nylander will show up to camp if he doesn't have a contract. So,
Yeah.
8 days out, John, how you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling the way I was feeling on the last episode of the Sports Lodge. I'm feeling this guy's getting traded. I'm feeling that the Leafs just don't want to commit long term to William Nylander. I think he's the odd man out. He's a great player, but he's the odd man out on a very, 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 very good offense. Now, Tim and Sid played a little hypothetical game yesterday, and not that I'm one to be sending people to watch other people's stuff, but they said, would you trade 1 year of William Nylander for 1 year of Erik Karlsson? And yeah, I don't know if you could get him
I mean,
one for
that's not
one.
really a question. That's a stupid question, because of course you would. Like, if it was only 1 year of each guy, if, like, you'd obviously take the top 3 player in the league and arguably the best defenseman. I get what Tim and Sid are trying to say there, but I know we fall on different sides of this, solely because I want to believe Kyle Dubas. I want to trust him when he says we're going to get these guys signed. We're going to be patient with it. I look at the Nikolai Ehlers contract in Winnipeg, and 6 years times or 7 years times 6, I'd lock him up, Willie Nylander, up to that contract today. And I think the Leafs have all the leverage. What's he going to do? Not play hockey? He's not going to play in Sweden. He's not going to go somewhere else. The Maple Leafs are the judge, jury, and executioner here. He's an RFA with no rights. And if somebody wants to offer sheet him, go ahead. You're going to have to give up multiple first-round picks for him to give him a contract that the Maple Leafs won't match. So I'm not concerned yet. I think they're going to get it done, but it's certainly a little bit interesting, John. And speaking of interesting contracts, there was breaking news out of Winnipeg the other day with Blake Wheeler, the captain of the Jets. He signs a 5-year extension at $8.25 million. A lot of front-end money on this. He's going to make up to $10 million his first couple of years. I don't know. I can understand what the Jets are doing here. They're trying to keep the band together while they're in this playoff Stanley Cup run. But 5 years, 8.25 for a guy who's going to turn 32 by the time this contract hits, it's a lot of dough.
Yeah, but he's an elite player in this league.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about it is I think this puts a cap on Tyler Seguin. I really, really do. Well, because how can Tyler Seguin look at his general manager and say I'm better than Blake Wheeler?
Well, I think he can say he's a centerman.
Tyler Seguin's not a centerman.
Yeah, he is.
He plays center on Dallas, but on a good team. I just don't. I think he's better on the wing.
He's the number 1 center on Dallas. I think Tyler Seguin's a legit number 1 center in the NHL. You think there's 15 guys better at center ice than Tyler Seguin in this league?
I think that Tyler Seguin is a sniper. I think Tyler Seguin can score goals. I just don't like him as a defensively responsible centerman.
Man, you don't
I
watch any
don't.
Dallas Stars hockey games. You don't know that. You're just talking in your ass. I know you
No,
are.
I'm talking off of the stats that I've looked up off of Tyler Seguin, and I just don't like the fact that this guy is going to be the next $10+ million player. He's not worth $10+ million. He's just not. He's not worth Connor McDavid money. He's not better than Jonathan Taves. He's not better than Patrick Kane. He's not better than these guys
You think he's better
in
than
my
Jack
opinion.
Eichel?
I cannot stand Jack Eichel's contract. So
That's the problem, I think,
yeah.
and that's what I feel like I always come back to when I get in these conversations is the fucking Jack Eichel contract. It's so crazy and ridiculous for that guy to be making the money he is, and
He's in Buffalo.
But like they just handed him the contract. They basically said after this guy, by all accounts, was heavily involved in the GM and the coach being fired. They just hand this guy $10 million, 10 plus million, and around the league, there's so many guys. I really like Jack Eichel. I think he has the ability to be a top 15 center in the NHL, even a top 10 center if he can get his shit together. But I don't think. I know that Blake Wheeler's contract being a winger is just going to compare differently, but I think Tyler Seguin's going to use that as his starting price. And honestly, I can see him doing what Johnny T did this summer. I think he could set up shop, and there's going to be suitors. There's going to be 5, 6, 7, 10 teams that are going to be lining up for the services of. I know you may not love him, John, but he's certainly a number one center, if not a 2A center. I guess would compare him more to a Jeff Carter type, maybe. But I think this guy's going to have his pick of the litter if Dallas doesn't decide to re-sign him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the problem. That's why he's going to get the money that he wants, right? It's because it's going to be a bidding war. So, I don't know. I wish that it worked differently. I wish it worked on based on skill level. And I mean, not that he's not skilled. He's
I think
obviously
this guy's
skilled.
so skilled. Like, I think he would make Team Canada.
But, like, I think that the best players should be making the most money. Like the very best players, like the Connor McDavids of the world, no one should be making more than them. They really,
nobody is making more. I don't think he's going to make more than McDavid, but I think he's going to want to make what Eichel made, and he's going to look at the John Tavares contract and be like, "Oh, well, that's pretty nice." Like, I don't.
And Johnny Keys is all bonus too.
Well, yeah, but you just got to look at the number, right? Like that's what these guys are looking at. Speaking of guys who want to re-sign, I thought this was real interesting. Matt Duchene came out, basically said he'd be happy to stay in Ottawa. That's the first time I've heard anybody say that in like a year and a half. Is he full of shit?
I think that he needs to toe the company line right now because he's come from a dysfunctional place in Colorado, and Colorado went from dysfunctional to very functional once he left. So you don't want to have that reputation of being the guy that causes the problems. And not that he's the guy who caused the problems in Ottawa, but you just don't want that reputation, right? So you don't want that stink following you around. What I was most surprised about was Craig Anderson coming out and saying that he would like to stay in Ottawa now after requesting a trade out of the nation's capital. He's just said he needs to make sure that everything is stable in the dressing room, and he didn't want any of the nonsense that was going on all last year. He didn't want to be a part of that anymore.
Yeah, trying to live a drama-free life, and obviously the Anderson clan's gone through quite a bit over the last 2 years, and I don't blame the guy. It's crazy to me that an NHL dressing room could have been such a gong show that it was, and I think that's a direct indictment on the players, on the captain, on the head coach, on the managers, on everybody involved. I think once you have a locker room that is that far gone and it's that dysfunctional, I really don't know how you're going to bring all these pieces back. But somehow we're 8 days from camp, and Erik Karlsson hasn't been traded yet either, John. So we're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be an interesting month of September here to see who reports, who doesn't, and what goes on. That's all I had for hockey. There wasn't much. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, buddy?
Nope, that's about it. I don't even really have anything else much to talk about this week.
Perfect. Me neither. So that's about 40 minutes. So we're going to edit this down. We're going to make it nice and pretty for all you guys. But that is episode 1 of the Sports Lodge podcast. Me and Johnny are going to try and do this consistently. We're going to see how this works and hopefully go from here. You can follow me at Twitter at JoeyChapman54, and you can follow our radio show at the Sports Lodge RR.
And I'm at JustJohn619 on Twitter and Jonathan Christopher Lodge on Facebook. Easy to find. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and there'll definitely be more of these. We're going to try and do this once a week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Peace out, everybody.